I sit on the couch, a cup of tea cooling in my hands, its warmth fading as I stare blankly at the flickering lights of the television. The noise, it feels like a distant hum, an uninviting backdrop to the chaos that is my reality. Lorenzo stands in the kitchen, animated and lively, discussing his parents' latest crises over the phone. As if I am completely invisible. He leans against the countertop, his voice carrying through the air, with a familiarity that stings. It's as if I'm not even here, forgotten in my own home. A heaviness settles in my chest, a familiar sensation that has been building for years. Each time I watch him prioritize their needs over mine, it creates an even larger chasm between us. I long for him to glance my way, to offer me a simple acknowledgement of my existence, but he remains oblivious, lost in their demands. It's a frustrating cycle, and I feel like I'm drowning in it. What about me? I ache to scream, but the words are lodged firmly in my throat, restrained by fear and hopelessness. The thought of being vulnerable, of expressing the depth of my feelings, feels terrifying. I can't help but wonder how long I have to keep pretending I'm okay with being sidelined. An afterthought in the life that we built together. My fingers grip the teacup as I take a deep breath, my thoughts spiraling. I cast a desperate glance toward him, silently pleading for connection, for understanding. Nothing. I remember the first time I felt this way. It was our wedding day, an occasion so filled with promises and hope. Yet it was there that I first sensed the weight of his family looming over us. My thoughts drift back to the family gatherings, the countless dinners where my voice seemed to vanish amidst the cacophony of their laughter, where my opinions were met with indifference. Those recollections now feel like shards of glass, cutting through the memories of our so-called happy life. Right then, the phone call wraps up, and Lorenzo laughs at something his mother said. My heart sinks further, and I feel a bitter knot tighten in my throat. I can't shake off the feeling of being left behind. The ever-present shadow of emotional neglect following me like a ghost. My heart wishes for a tiny piece of his attention, just a small acknowledgement of the efforts I put in to support him. Still I am met with silence. As much as I try to justify it, remind myself that he loves me in his own way, the truth is hard to ignore. My needs are consistently pushed aside. The evening stretches on, heavy with unspoken words that linger in the air like stale bread. I feel the familiar ache in my chest intensifying, a silent reminder of how alone I am in this partnership that feels anything but equal. I'm lost in my thoughts, trapped beneath the weight of the decision I've been avoiding for far too long. Is this what I want forever? The realization washes over me, suffocating yet liberating. There's a decision weighing on me, one I can't continue to ignore. In this moment, I understand. I deserve to be seen, heard, prioritized. I clench my fists, feeling the pulse of my heart quicken with a mix of fear and determination. The distance is unbearable. I can't continue living in this emotional void without feeling utterly broken. It's time to confront the truth of my situation and contemplate the unthinkable. What would my life look like without this constant ache? Flashbacks flood my mind like an unwelcome tide, swirling up images of our wedding day. An era ripe with hope yet shadowed by the first subtle hints of Lorenzo's family's overbearing presence. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, surrounded by friends and family, but amongst the joy, I felt an uneasy weight, the expectations of his parents tugging at my heart. I remember glancing at Lorenzo during the ceremony, his eyes filled with promise and love. Yet even then, I sensed something lurking behind that blissful smile. His family hovered over us like storm clouds, ready to unleash their demands the moment we uttered our vows. As we exchanged rings, I felt a silent vow slip through the cracks of our celebration, one that prioritized their needs above mine. The family dinners began shortly after. Each gathering felt like an initiation into a world where my opinions fell flat, swallowed up by the louder voices around me. I recall sitting at the dinner table, meticulously crafted dishes served by Lorenzo's mother, the aroma filling the room, creating an illusion of warmth. Laughter echoed as stories were shared, but each attempt I made to interject or contribute to the conversations was met with polite smiles and swift changes of topic. It was as if my words were bullets, bouncing off an impenetrable wall of indifference. "How was your day, Martina?" Lorenzo's father would ask, but only in passing, quickly turning the conversation back to his own triumphs and tribulations. Each dismissal felt like a dagger, piercing through what little confidence I had left. I can still picture those moments, the faint flicker of anticipation in my chest, rapidly extinguished with every teasing laugh or dismissive wave of Lorenzo's hand, rendering my feelings inconsequential. Then there were the weekends. My heart would swell with hope when I'd try to plan intimate outings with Lorenzo, trips to the art museum, cozy movie nights snuggled on the couch. Yet, without fail, his phone would ring with updates from his parents. "They need my help with something," he would say, his voice already laced with guilt, as though he were completely trapped in their demands. I would smile, masking my disappointment, but inside I felt that all too familiar pang of solitude washing over me. I wished he could see how, as he prioritized his family, I felt more like a ghost in our own life. Each time he bolted off to manage their needs, a part of me withdrew a little more, fading into the background of our love-struck beginning. The moments we should have spent together were rapidly replaced by obligations wrapped in familial expectations. Hindsight reveals that these were not isolated incidents. They were threads woven tightly into the fabric of our relationship. Each situation inflating my insecurities laid the foundation for a painful realization. I was, and had always been, in competition with a family that had deeply rooted ways of dependency on Lorenzo. I could practically hear the echo of Lorenzo's mother's voice, firmly ingrained in his mind. "You must always take care of your family first, Lorenzo. Family comes before everything." The echoing words felt like shackles on my heart, the chains tightening as my sense of self began to wither. I remember that one dinner, where the conversation naturally turned to planning a family holiday. I suggested a getaway for just the two of us, a chance to rekindle our intimacy. Lorenzo smiled half-heartedly, but his mother piped up instantly. "Oh, but we were hoping to have a family reunion then." I felt crushed under the weight of her words, exposed, vulnerable, and alone, as if my needs were too small to be even considered. As I flash back to those memories, the intrusion of Lorenzo's parents into our lives stands as a glaring truth, revealing how each family obligation chipped away at what little connection we had left. Each encounter felt like a calculated play, my feelings dwindling in the background while his family's monopoly over his attention grew ever stronger. How could I have allowed their voice to drown out my own? In that moment of reflection, the cycle is painfully clear. Each experience was a reminder of my place in this familial hierarchy. I began to understand the underlying power dynamics at play, a silent war I never chose to engage in. Lost in thought, I realized that I must find a way to reclaim my voice. This repetitive monologue of neglect has become too exhausting to bear. As Lorenzo's voice fades out once more in the present, mingling with the faint laughter of his family on the phone, I feel the air thickening around me like fog. I realize I need to subdue the waves of dissatisfaction building within me. It dawns on me that this realization isn't just a fleeting thought. Rather, it's a lighthouse guiding me towards the primal need for respect, my self-worth clashing sharply with their expectations. As his laughter echoes in my mind, morphing into haunting reminders of my inadequacy, I take a deep breath. I may be trapped in this pattern now, but recognizing it is the first step towards unraveling its hold on my heart. And with that realization comes a spark of determination. It's time to either fight for space or step away completely from this exhausting cycle that consistently sidelines my needs. With this newfound awareness, I embrace the gradual shift within me, readying myself to stand up, if not for Lorenzo, then for me. I can't remain shackled to this emotional cycle any longer. The shadows don't have to dictate my reality. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I feel the weight of the journal resting in my lap, its pages a canvas for my thoughts, some buried deep, some fluttering like desperate birds seeking escape. I've been pouring my heart into these pages, trying to make sense of the emotional neglect that has woven its way into our lives like an unwanted tapestry. Writing has become my sanctuary, a refuge from the constant ache that clouds my days. I grip the pen tightly, letting the ink flow freely as I chronicle my feelings and stories, the ones that have lingered in silence for far too long. Each entry pulsates with raw honesty, detailing the moments where I've felt overlooked by Lorenzo, the crushing realization that I am often not just unseen but unheard. As I read the words I've penned, I am confronted with the depth of my unhappiness. I dissect our interactions, taking notes on Lorenzo's dismissive tendencies, the way he casually brushes aside my concerns as if they're unimportant. Just yesterday at dinner, I gingerly mentioned how lonely I felt during those weekends he spent with his family. He chuckled, a light, airy sound that cut through me. "You know my parents need me," he quipped, his eyes glazed over with detachment, as though my feelings were nothing more than a minor inconvenience in his busy life. In that moment, the walls felt like they were closing in, and the world faded away. The tears I held back began to swirl within me, threatening to spill out, and I wrestled with the uncomfortable truth that had settled heavily on my shoulders. I was fighting for a space in a life that consistently sidelined me. Yet, despite the frustration bubbling just beneath the surface, I gather my courage and decide that standing up for my needs is a battle worth fighting. I start small, each assertion feeling monumental against the backdrop of years of quiet submission. One evening, while we sat on the couch, I mustered enough courage to voice my desire for spending more intimate time together. "Can we have a date night this weekend? Just the two of us?" I asked, the words tasting bittersweet as they left my mouth. Lorenzo looked at me surprised, a flicker of intrigue flashing across his face. For a second, I thought I saw hope. But then reality struck as he glanced at his phone. "Oh, but my parents have planned a barbecue." The sweetness of my request quickly vanished, replaced by a stinging bitterness. Memories swirl around me, a kaleidoscope of moments where I watched my needs vanish in the wake of his family's demands. He did his best to soothe me, reassuring me that his intentions were not to neglect me completely. Yet I still felt an undercurrent of resentment growing. I am becoming acutely aware that my voice is not only missing, it is actively silenced. Thoughts of leaving float like ghosts in the corridors of my mind, teasing me with the possibility of freedom. But I hesitate, grappling with the stark fear of the unknown. The risks of stepping away from the familiar, the comfortable ache, feel insurmountable. Who will I be without Lorenzo? Yet at the same time, the only clarity I find is the knowledge that I can no longer proceed as I have been, lost in a shadow of neglect. One night, after another discouraging conversation, I escaped to my journal, allowing my emotions to spill out onto the pages. I scribble furiously, tears dampening the corners of my notebook as I detail my longing for connection, for intimacy, for recognition. Repeatedly, I have placed his needs above mine, hoping that someday he would recognize the sacrifices I've made. I can feel the disappointment wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket, heavy and unyielding. It's during this cathartic release that an epiphany strikes me. I refuse to be the invisible woman tucked away in the confines of our home any longer. Each word marks a step toward clarity. I realize that I have every right to feel cherished, seen, and respected. As the tears flow, they threaten to blur my vision, but they also serve as a cleansing river, washing away the doubts that plagued me. With every entry I write, a sense of resolve burgeons within me. I can't ignore the discomfort any longer. It's time to face the pain and find a way to carve a path toward my own happiness. I close the journal with a decisive snap, a newfound strength surging within me as I sit in the stillness that surrounds me. I make a promise to myself. I will find a way to vocalize my needs and take back that which was overshadowed. My voice, my desires, my happiness. The weight of solitude feels lighter, almost buoyant, as I embrace the thought of standing tall in the face of Lorenzo's dismissiveness. But the journey ahead weighs heavily on my heart. Determined and fearful, I resolve to quietly and courageously challenge the patterns that have trapped me for so long. This silent awakening to my reality is both terrifying and exhilarating. I now stand at the precipice of a decision, one that challenges everything I once thought about love, dependence, and my own self-respect. My heart echoes with one undeniable truth. I crave authenticity, commitment, and most importantly, the freedom to prioritize my own needs. The days turned into a tumultuous whirlwind as I prepared for my long-overdue confrontation with Lorenzo. Each morning felt like an eternity, the walls of our home echoing my turbulent emotions. I had been silently plotting my approach, meticulously crafting my words in my mind. I could almost feel the tension crackling in the air, and the prospect of finally taking a stand consumed me. both thrilling and terrifying. With each passing hour, the knot in my stomach tightened. I envisioned our upcoming conversation over and over again. What if he reacted defensively? What if he dismissed my feelings as irrational? But beneath the surface of my anxiety lay a glimmer of hope. I envisioned a future where I wouldn't just be a placeholder in our relationship, where our love could thrive on reciprocity, respect, and genuine connection. Finally, the evening arrived when I felt ready to broach the subject. Lorenzo was sprawled out on the couch, engrossed in a late match of his favorite sports team. The television blared in the background, brightly contrasting the heavy thoughts swirling in my mind. I took a moment to collect myself, taking a deep breath that was filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. As I approached him, my heart raced, an orchestra of nerves playing in my chest. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly, fighting the urge to retreat into silence. He turned to look at me, surprise flickering across his face, but the television screen still had more of his attention. "Can it wait?" "The game is on," he replied, not fully dismissive but certainly not fully present. I could feel the frustration swelling inside me. And for a brief moment, I hesitated, feeling those familiar chains of self-doubt clamping around my heart. But that glimmer of hope crashed through as I reminded myself of my worth. "No, it can't wait," I insisted, grounding my voice with determination. I pulled myself together and sat down across from him, my heart pounding. I watched as confusion crossed his features, then curiosity. "I need to express what I've been feeling, and it's important." The game continued in the background, but Lorenzo finally lowered the remote and gave me his full attention. "All right, I'm listening. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, I plunged into the conversation, my heart racing as the words spilled out. "I've been feeling increasingly neglected, as if my feelings are secondary to yours and your family's needs. Each time I try to engage or seek your attention, it feels like I'm met with indifference. It's painful." As I laid bare my feelings, I watched his expression shift from surprise to defensiveness. "I don't mean to neglect you, Martina. You know my parents really rely on me," he countered, his voice growing slightly louder, tinged with a hint of agitation. I could sense the familiar frustration rising. But I pressed on, refusing to back down. "I understand that family is important, but so is our relationship. I want to be a priority in your life too. Every time you answer their call or rush out to help them, it feels like I'm invisible. I'm sitting here, craving your presence, but it's like you don't see me." His eyes narrowed, and I could see he was struggling with my words. "It's not that simple. You don't understand the obligations I have." I felt a surge of anger rising within me, charged by both my need for understanding and his insistence on evading accountability. "I do understand. I see how much you care about them, but I am not asking you to cut them out of your life. I'm asking you to find some balance. Can't you see how it feels to always come last?" I realized then that my voice was rising, echoing in the dimly lit room as the tension grew thick between us. He opened his mouth as if to respond, but paused, confusion intertwining with a hint of hesitation. I watched him wrestle with my words. For a moment, silence engulfed the room, the atmosphere shifting palpably. It was like the chaos around us had faded, leaving us in a liminal space where truths could no longer be hidden. "You're right," Lorenzo finally admitted, his voice quiet but firm. "I always thought I was doing what was best for everyone, including you. But I see now how my neglect has affected you. And honestly, I didn't realize how deeply it ran." His gaze fell to his hands, and for the first time, I could see genuine remorse reflected in his eyes. The weight of his admission settled between us, and the tension began to dissipate ever so slightly. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions welling within me, a mix of relief and hesitation. "So what do we do now?" I asked, still wary but tentatively hopeful. Lorenzo sighed, rubbing the back of his neck as he seemed to search for the right words. "I need to reevaluate where I place my efforts. It's not a simple fix, but I want to try. I am willing to prioritize us more. Even if it's small at first, I want to establish boundaries with my parents that allow us to grow together." It was a monumental step, and my heart fluttered with the possibilities of our conversation. Yet I remained cautious. "I hope so, but I need to see that in action." Words are just words if there are no actions to back them up. You're right, he nodded with sincerity. I don't want to lose what we have. I care about you more than I ever truly expressed. And there it was. A shimmer of hope, a shining thread woven into the fabric of our talk. As the evening drew on, we continued to unpack our tangled emotions. The feelings we had both tucked away, the hesitations we'd harbored. It was exhausting but liberating. And with each passing moment, I felt a renewed sense of strength enveloping me. This was the beginning of a change I had desperately pleaded for. The first steps toward reclaiming our partnership. One where my voice would no longer echo unheard, lost in the shadows. As we finished our heartfelt discussions, I realized that in facing our differences, we discovered new layers to our love that had long been dormant. I still knew we had a long way to go, and it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I felt a genuine connection rekindling between us. A promise that together we could navigate the complexities of our lives, hand in hand. The following days passed like a delicate dance, a cautious yet promising choreography that bore the weight of our recent revelations. Lorenzo seemed determined to change, his approach progressively building a bridge that had long been weathered and worn. We began scheduling regular date nights, something that had turned into a distant memory. Each Saturday, I would anticipate our time together, the small gestures of affection rekindling the warmth I yearned for in our relationship. One balmy evening, we visited our favorite little cafe, the place where we spent countless weekends lost in laughter and deep conversation. As we settled into our booth, the chatter and playful buzz of patrons filled the air, creating an ambience that felt alive, vibrant, and electric. I could see Lorenzo's face light up as he recounted stories from his childhood, moments I had never heard before, filled with his infectious laughter that echoed in my heart. Yet, as I gazed across the table, a pang of apprehension struck me. Despite the newfound spark between us, the specter of his family still loomed, a reminder of the patterns we had to confront. When the waiter approached and took our orders, I decided to broach the subject with cautious optimism. I really appreciated your effort to prioritize us, but I need to understand how that will work when your parents call at all hours. I don't want to feel secondary again. Lorenzo nodded, his brows furrowing slightly. I get that really. I'll set some boundaries for sure. They'll need to understand that our time is sacred. But it'll take a bit of practice, some time to readjust. You know how family dynamics can be complicated. Complicated. That was putting it lightly. The thought of establishing boundaries sent shivers down my spine, but deep down, I felt it necessary. Complicated isn't really an excuse. You deserve to be able to say no, without feeling guilty. They love you, but your life needs to include us as well. The sincerity in his eyes gave me hope, but I also felt the weight of uncertainty resting heavily on my shoulders. Dealing with family would be a battle, but I couldn't let that dampen the progress we were making. I blocked out the dark thoughts, focusing instead on the moment. His laughter filling up the empty spaces in my heart as we talked about everything and nothing, losing track of time. As the sun dropped below the horizon and the street lamps flickered to life, our chemistry flourished in the air, palpable and inviting. I felt the pulse of a rekindled passion lighting up my veins, creating an ambience filled with joy and intimacy. I chose to embrace the positivity, reveling in the moment that felt so completely alive. But soon enough, the shadow of reality re-entered our lives, darkening the warmth of my hopeful heart. One evening, just as I had settled into a peaceful routine, I received a call from Lorenzo's mother unexpectedly. My stomach dropped as I answered, anticipating the walls closing in again. Martina, I was hoping to talk to you about the family reunion next month. Her voice was bright, yet a tinge of authority underscored her words. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the loop of obligation that I knew awaited me. Of course, I replied, attempting to keep my tone even. How can I help? Well, we need someone to organize the event. You're good at that sort of thing, right? It would mean a lot to us. You really want to make a good impression, especially since Lorenzo is finally settling down. It'll be nice for everyone to see how well you handle everything. I felt my throat tighten as words of automatic compliance threatened to spill forth. I could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on my chest, the tension suffocating. In that moment, A flood of questions swept through my mind. Was this a loyalty test, or just another way to draw me deeper into their world? I mean, I can help out, but we really need to be all in, Martina. You know how family is, she interjected, her tone rising slightly, leaving me no room to maneuver. The familiar discomfort washed over me. Was I once again relegated to the back seat of this family narrative? A dark cloud loomed over my hopeful progress as I hung up the phone, feeling defeated and frustrated. I had finally garnered the courage to voice my feelings, yet the very fabric of our budding empowerment felt as if it were unraveling. I glanced at the mirror, searching for strength that suddenly felt elusive. When Lorenzo returned home, I decided it was time to confront him again, the urge for a clear dialogue asserting its claim on me. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I shared the phone call. Your mom reached out for help with the family reunion. They want me to take charge, Lorenzo, and I'm really struggling with it. He furrowed his brow, and for an instant, I feared he might dismiss my concerns again. Instead, he softly pressed. What do you feel about taking that on? It's a big commitment. The problem isn't just about the reunion, Lorenzo. It's about how they continue to pull me into their world, without considering my feelings. I need you to push back with me, not just for me but for us. His silence was heavy but encouraging, and I could see the gears moving in his mind as he parsed through my words. Finally, he nodded slowly. I understand. I'll talk to my parents. It might not be easy, but you're right. Our relationship comes first. I exhaled, a weight lifted off my shoulders as his text messages pinged through, reaffirming that he would stand by me. In that moment, a wave of warmth washed over me, flooding the cracks that the shadows had tried to claim. I felt ready to take back the space I had fought so hard to reclaim, to rediscover the depths of our connections, and rebuild my confidence. As the days unfolded, I could feel the balance finally tipping in our favor. With each small victory, I found myself flickering between optimism and trepidation, each tentative shift bringing us closer together, while the specter of family expectations still whispered in the back of my mind. It was time for us to carve our own path together, to set boundaries that safeguarded our love, reigniting the flame I desperately sought. Thus, each step I took felt not just like reclaiming my voice, but also a delicate reminder that love can be both a refuge and a battlefield. With Lorenzo at my side, armed with honesty and respect, I steadily embraced the journey ahead, daring to believe we could weather the storms and emerge, not just as partners, but as true allies. The atmosphere in our relationship began to lighten, but I was fully aware that love's journey was rarely without its share of challenges. The evening Lorenzo had promised to confront his family loomed ever closer, and with it came a mix of intoxicating excitement and gnawing anxiety. Would the foundations we had fought to build be strong enough to withstand the weight of his family's expectations? When he finally returned home that day, he wore a thoughtful expression that intensified my anticipation. So how did it go? I asked, my heart pounding, braced for every word he would share. It went surprisingly well, he said, a note of disbelief lacing his voice. My pulse quickened as I leaned in closer, eager to digest every detail. They were caught off guard, of course, but I made it clear that things need to change. I think they're realizing we deserve our space. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest, but doubt still clung to me. What did you say exactly? I prodded, needing clarity on the new ground he had treaded. I told them that I love them, but that you're my priority now, he explained, his tone steady and firm. I highlighted how often I've had to drop plans with you to cater to family obligations, emphasizing that it prevents us from truly flourishing as a couple. A rush of gratitude washed over me, astonished at his newfound resolve. Wow, that's amazing. I beamed, my excitement aligned with a deep-seated pride. I can't believe you managed to articulate all of that so well. His smile radiated warmth and relief, an infectious reflection of our shared victory. It feels like a significant step forward, but I hope we can create healthier boundaries going forward. In a moment of boldness, I suggested we invite his parents over for dinner. It'd be a good gesture to show them that we're united in this, I said, assertively but kindly. However, we need to be clear about boundaries for our time together. Lorenzo nodded in agreement, And as the days passed towards the dinner, I immersed myself in preparations with fierce enthusiasm. I chopped vegetables and stirred sauces, creating a feast that would showcase our commitment to each other. This was so much more than a meal. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. The evening arrived, infused with a sense of both excitement and tension as I donned my favorite dress, a deep shade of green that I knew brought out the color of my eyes. The table was adorned with elegant silverware, polished and set with care, alongside a bouquet of fresh flowers that brought life to the space. When Lorenzo's parents stepped into our home, the mood shifted palpably. They were their usual charming selves, but the underlying currents of uncertainty mixed with familiarity loomed as they exchanged pleasantries with cautious smiles. I could feel my heart race, aware that we were not just hosting a dinner, but rather setting the stage for deeper discussions about the dynamics of our lives. "Thank you for having us," Lorenzo's mother remarked brightly, her tone warm yet with an undercurrent of expectancy. I responded with an equally polite smile, but inside, I felt the tension mounting. I had to remind myself that tonight was an opportunity, a chance to initiate change. After all, the dinner would not only be about food, but also about re-establishing our connection. As dinner progressed, I recounted stories from our shared experiences, humorous anecdotes and cherished memories that would weave a thread of unity and warmth around the table. But every so often, comments would slip through the fabric of our conversation like arrows. "Lorenzo has always relied heavily on family, hasn't he?" his father remarked, accompanied by an edge that felt stifling. The implication hung in the air, a reminder that old patterns would not die easily. I shared an uneasy glance with Lorenzo, silently seeking his support, hoping he would help me navigate this emotionally charged territory. Family is important, but a healthy relationship thrives when both partners' needs are met. I found the courage to respond, and every eye turned toward me. "We can't sacrifice our love for family obligation, and we need them to understand that." The words felt liberating, and I noted the surprise in Lorenzo's parents' expressions. "Of course, dear," his mother replied, her tone shifting slightly. The defensiveness lingered beneath the surface, reminding me that change was not simple. Despite this, I pressed on. I could not let fear dictate our future. I would assert our desires, and it would only strengthen us. As the dinner progressed into safer topics, I could feel the shifting tides of the past lingering like shadows. We discussed lighter subjects, travel plans and upcoming events that sparked excitement without any strain. And yet, as I served dessert, a homemade cake adorned with fresh fruits, I couldn't shake the feeling of achievement washing over me. I had stood my ground, advocating for our needs amidst the weight of expectation. After the plates were cleared, Lorenzo turned to me, his eyes sparkling with gratitude and pride. "You were incredible tonight," he murmured, the emotion in his voice washing over me like a warm embrace. In that moment, I realized how much I had fought for us and how we had come to share a deeper, stronger connection. But this is just the beginning. We need to stay firm. I nodded, ready to embrace the challenge. Together, we tackled the remaining dishes, building not just a meal, but the foundation of a partnership marked by respect and collaborative effort. As we scrubbed and rinsed, I reveled in the satisfaction that came from our combined teamwork, a signal of the mutual growth that lay ahead. That night, curled up together on the sofa, I noticed a transformative shift within me. The shadows of insecurity that once threatened to suffocate us began to recede, making way for the undeniable glow of hope and connection. With my head resting against Lorenzo's shoulder, I felt gratitude sweep over me. Our journey had merely begun, but we had crossed a pivotal threshold together, one that promised lessons learned and actions taken. Together, we had faced challenges and carved out a space where love could flourish, an unbreakable alliance full of newfound strength and loyalty. As the evening quieted, the warmth of his embrace reaffirmed my belief that hope was alive and vibrant. Our love, rich with understanding, was a steadfast foundation, and I welcomed the future with open arms. As time moved on, the effects of our pivotal dinner began to settle into our lives. Lorenzo's parents initially reacted positively to our boundary setting, but I felt a lingering concern that their acceptance might prove to be temporary. While Lorenzo carved out more time for us, the hidden complexities of their approval remained in the back of my mind. One Saturday, we decided to throw a game night for friends. A chaotic yet joyful affair filled with laughter and delicious pizza. As Lorenzo relaxed with friends, I recalled my own anxiety about his parents potentially undermining our hard-earned progress. "Let's invite my parents next week," Lorenzo casually suggested, watching the festivities. I hesitated, feeling the atmosphere around us shift. "Are you sure? We're finally establishing a rhythm here," I replied, my apprehension surfacing. "They're family," he said firmly. "I want them to see us happy." We went back and forth until I ultimately agreed, wanting to keep the channels of communication open, even if it meant navigating rocky waters. The invite sent an unexpected wave of nervousness through me. Would the night turn back to the uncomfortable interactions of the past? I mulled over these concerns as I prepared for their arrival, carefully selecting what to wear and arranging the living room. On the night of the gathering, my nerves fluttered within me as his parents arrived. Their bright smiles felt strained, reminiscent of our previous encounters, and I wondered how much had truly changed. "Thank you for having us," Lorenzo's mom said too warmly, and an unsettling feeling crept back into my thoughts. The evening unfolded with both light-hearted moments and subtle pressures. While we played games, his father unexpectedly asked, "So when are you two getting married?" My heart sank, panic rising as I exchanged glances with Lorenzo, who managed to deflect his father's question, redirecting our focus back to the games. I admired his ability to navigate this conversation, but the unease lingered in the corner of my mind. As the night continued, though, I witnessed a surprising transformation. Lorenzo's parents were genuinely laughing, enjoying the camaraderie of our friends, breaking down some of the barriers that had once felt insurmountable. I decided to break out some playful teasing, letting my guard down in an attempt to create a sense of goodwill. To my surprise, they responded positively, engaging in the light-hearted banter. When Lorenzo's dad challenged me to a game of charades, the laughter became infectious, and I found myself fully immersed in the moment, acting out silly scenes that brought us all together. I noticed a new sense of acceptance blossoming among us, a connection that felt out of reach just months earlier. Later, as we settled into the couch with mugs of cocoa, I turned to Lorenzo, my heart swelled with newfound hope. "Maybe they're starting to understand," I whispered, warmth flourishing within me. "Yeah, I think so too," he agreed, fingers laced with mine. That evening marked a significant turning point. I realized that acceptance does not come overnight. It ebbs and flows like the tide. Our walls were slowly crumbling, revealing that love bridges the gaps among families. With every strengthened bond, I discovered a growing conviction that we would create a blended family, one built on understanding and respect. With my head resting on his shoulder, I embraced the excitement of our journey ahead.